I wanted to start a unique FC25 save. I don't want to become a manager, but instead a director of football. That means it's going to be my responsibility to pick out and sign a manager, scout the players, and hire coaches, while they're in charge of everything that happens on the pitch. This means that team selections, tactics and training, and of course match days are all off limits for me to make changes to. It's the ultimate test of my player recruitment skills, and of course, if things don't work out on the pitch, my manager picking skills too. Forget manager mode, we're playing director of football mode on FC25. What club would be reckless enough to hire a total nobody in one of the most important positions? Well, you might have seen the thumbnail. We're going straight in as Manchester United's director of football. Our first move is not sacking a manager for a change. Instead, it's transfer listing about half of our squad. Casemiro, listed. Antony, listed. Maguire, Lindelof and Xerxes, all listed for transfer. We're fully backing Ruben Amorim with our rebuild, at least for now. If he can't lift United into a top 7 spot by the end of this season, we'll be looking for a manager who can. I think the news of our rebuild might have leaked, because we've been sent some pretty interesting offers from agents already. Ronald Araujo isn't happy with his wage in Barcelona and he'd be interested in leaving. Douglas Luiz wants a guaranteed starting position at a bigger club, so he wants to leave Juventus. We even get told that Cristiano Ronaldo might be interested in returning, but only if we promise to spend a lot of money on the training ground. But we're Manchester United. We don't need desperate players, we want the very best, and we're well on our way to raising the money to buy the very best. On the pitch, Ruben is slowly stumbling towards the January transfer window. The performances are hit and miss. We get a decent point at City with Antony on fire, and also at Liverpool with Højlund dominating Virgil van Dijk. But in the same set of games, we lose quite heavily against Spurs and can't beat Wolves on Boxing Day. At least things are going better in the director's box. I don't know how we've convinced Casemiro to end his career in Italy, but it's a decent bid that we're ecstatic to accept. Similar can be said for Al Hilal. Antony agrees to spend 6 months in Riyadh, with the Saudi champions paying his entire wage. Our rebuild is going to be staggered over the next 3 seasons. This year, we're going for players who can make either a big impact straight away, or players who will need game time to improve. Hassan Ouedraogo is definitely in the second category, but with Leipzig wanting to raise money to sign someone, Ouedraogo is picked up cheaper than we ever expected. Let's hope that his last season's problem with injuries is just a minor blip. Ezequiel Banzuzi is another one we've signed for the future, and he can pass a ball like nobody else in his age group, while also being able to play as a playmaker or as a holding midfielder. He's a more physical Christian Eriksen, but he has tons of room to improve. Let's also secure Ahmad by renewing his contract for another 3 years. With the future secured, let's also raid Wolverhampton Wanderers. Ait Nouri and their talisman Matheus Cunha are joining for a combined fee of 75 million. We bring in 2 players that will improve our team, while probably also condemning Wolves to relegation. It's sad for them, but having Bruno and Cunha as attacking midfielder is an elite combination behind Rasmus Højlund. Ruben picks that exact lineup for United's final 2 Europa League games, and guess what? We actually win both. The final day of January is going to be a big day for the entire club. The academy manager wants to know how we're going to assign our academy staff. 2 scouts will look in Manchester for young players, and the other one is off to Portugal to see if we can find another Bruno Fernandes. But that's just the start. We get a really good bid for Rashford off Newcastle. He's not part of our plans, so he is off up north. Luke Shaw also leaves the club on deadline day, although his destination is a little bit further away. It's great to get these 2 guys off the payroll, but we need to think about the Premier League's registration rules. We need a certain amount of English players, so to replace Rashford and Shaw, we recall Jadon Sancho from his loan, with a payment going to Chelsea to get their approval of the deal. So now our team is probably weaker than it was at the start of January, but we're actually in a much better position financially, especially for the next summer window. The question is now, can United somehow qualify for Europe? With the new signings in place, things slowly improve. You can tell there's a high squad turnover, but even our boss Jim Ratcliffe approves of the big financial outlay. In terms of wages, we're saving close to £50 million per season, and if we can keep finding bargains like Ouedraogo for just £6 million, things can only improve. Amorim was never in danger for the rest of the year. In the league, we climbed, and entering May, we were actually in a way healthier position than when he joined back in December. It was a comfortable 6th place, with still room to improve, but we'd also scraped our way to the semi-finals of the Europa League. Spurs were going to be our opponents, and they also needed a win in this tournament. Ange was still just about holding on, but even though we admire his idealistic views on football, we were never even going to consider him to be a future manager. Amorim is more our cup of tea, but still, getting a route into the Champions League could be massive. As we had hoped, Amorim and Ange both picked the best possible teams for the semi-final. Would we get the result we wanted? We actually lost. We conceded 2 pretty sloppy goals, and if things don't improve in the second leg, even though he's not yet at risk, this could be the first nail in Ruben's coffin. We'd already received word that Andrea Pirlo, Ruud van Nistelrooy and Xabi Alonso were all interested in the job, but we still backed our existing manager. We really needed something in the second leg, but no matter what we tried, Rasmus just could not break through the Spurs defence. Cunha and Fernandes made so many chances, but we just couldn't figure out how to finish them off. At least that gives us an idea of where we can improve for Season 2. With the aggregate loss confirmed, the club just about stumbled into 6th place on the final day. Annoyingly, this would only be for the Conference League, but any European football is still better than the 14th place where United were when Amorim took over back in November. It's a new season, but it's the same management team. We've got the same goal too. We're on stage 2 of our rebuild. We've already saved millions of wage budget last January. Lindelof is now gone as well. With him, Eriksen, Evans, Heaton and Gore all have their contracts expiring. With a budget of close to £200 million, we can really have some fun. We shoot Ruben an email, where do you need reinforcements? His reply was shockingly detailed. We could use a new wing-back because I don't like Mazraoui. Right, so that's going to be a big chunk of our budget, but we can invite bids for Mazraoui and look for someone else. It doesn't take long to find the perfect replacement. An aging Marcos Llorente looks to be the best short-term fix, at least until we can afford someone better or he starts declining as he hits his 30s. I'd like a huge young centre-back who can pass a ball. I'm fairly confident Ruben was expecting us to sign Antonio Silva, but our scouts have actually identified Luka Vuskovic as a better signing. He's cheaper and able to be developed into an elite ball-playing centre-back despite being so young. I need an elite box-to-box next to Ugarte. This one was easier. We're competing with Manchester City for Ederson, but we have chairman's permission to blow them out of the water when it comes to wages. We can also offer a more guaranteed game time, so Ederson is going to be our new Fred in midfield. Finally, and this is the big one, give me a world-class striker and I will give you the league. Wow, now that is a promise. Højlund developed a lot last season, but I can see Ruben's point. He's not on the same level as City's Haaland, Liverpool's Nunez, or even Chelsea's Jackson, and for the first time in years, there's some good striking options that we can go for. With £100 million to spend, we narrow it down to one of 4 players. It could be Gyökeres, but he's improving in England and might just be on a really good run of form. We don't want another Xerxes, do we? And it could be Isaac. We'd be weakening a rival, but he'd use all of our budget and wants the highest wage. Victor Osimhen is another option. He claims to have supported United as a child, but we'd be competing with Arsenal, Forest and Spurs for his signature. It could turn out to be very expensive. And finally, Harry Edward Kane. The man closest to breaking the Premier League goal-scoring record is not happy with life in Germany. His agent has told us that he would be interested in a 2-year deal while we improve Rasmus behind the scenes. It's a big decision and we actually pass it back to Ruben Amorim. Who would you prefer? He replies with one word, Kane. So we provide. Harry Kane joins, with Mazraoui returning to Bayern Munich as part of the deal, and our team is set. Honestly, it reminds us of the 2021 team. There's talent in every position, but the expectations are super high. The action moves from us in the boardroom to Amorim on the pitch. With our rebuilt squad, we actually pick up 9 points in our first 4 games, already a huge improvement on last year's Ten Hag era. With such a good start, we set a target of 18 points from our first 8 games. Anything above this, and we're probably in title contention, and anything below, maybe we need to start looking for a manager already this early in the season. While the post-international break games are going on, our scouts return with a new batch of future Manchester United heroes. It's probably more likely that we'll have to sell them cheaply to fund a future rebuild, but it's still nice to know we're keeping that academy pipeline flowing. The wins are flowing too, and by Halloween, we're firmly in the top 4 alongside City, Arsenal and Newcastle. Things are going really well in Europe too. We're pretty high in the group stages table, with only a few decent teams left to play in the Europa League. We even managed to beat Liverpool in one of the highest quality derbies in living memory. We're now entering December and we're still performing pretty well in the league, with Amorim firing us up to 2nd place. We've actually got a decent amount of cash from bids for some of our deadwood, so we're going into December with a budget of £65 million. This gives us quite a tough choice though. The Premier League's had several young, overperforming players like Liam Delap and Murillo. On the other hand, Jared Bowen and Lucas Paqueta have both been listed as available and are interested in joining us. Do we spend big on future potential, or do we go for the player who instantly fits into our team? In the past, we know that this would have resulted in Bowen joining, but not on our watch. Murillo is the perfect wide centre-back on the left, and even though he's small, he's taller than Martinez. He agrees to join, and we're ready to push off with one of the quickest, strongest, and highest potential back threes in the entire world. A few more relics from the time that United were poorly run decide to leave the club in our second January transfer window, but honestly, no one will miss them as our newest Brazilian superstar walks through the door after them. Our scouts predicted that Murillo would need a few weeks to settle into life in Manchester, but he's thrown straight in and keeps a clean sheet on his debut in the FA Cup. We decide to cool it on transfers for the rest of the month. Kane is slowly starting to deteriorate, so we do start to look for his replacement. We might pick them up in the summer, or we might even wait 12 months until next January. Harry Kane is still scoring a bag full of goals every month, so either way, we're hopefully going to hold on to our top 4 spot. A lot of the pressure post-transfer window was coming from the Conference League. If we win that, we guarantee a spot in the Europa League, but we'll probably get Champions League qualification from the league anyway. If we miss out somehow, then it's bye-bye Amorim. We've already made some preliminary contacts with managers in case we do miss out, but let's hope that it doesn't come to that. The thing is though, that with Murillo in the team, we just don't seem like we're going to lose. Amorim's 3-4-3 dispatches team after team. It doesn't matter if you're Brentford, if you're Bournemouth, if you're Chelsea, or if you're Arsenal, when you come up against this team, you just lose. In the most ridiculous run of form, Harry Kane would bag 10 goals in 8 games, and slowly, we're starting to close the gap on Manchester City. In fact, with just 5 games left in the season, we sit 5 points behind them. One slip up and they're catchable, and the fixture gods have also been kind to us. Manchester City still have to play 3 of the top 4 in their final 5, while we're going to play 19th, 20th, and on the final day of the season, Manchester City will be coming to Old Trafford. Wolves somehow seem to have survived last year, despite us stealing their 2 best players, but this year, we're the ones that condemn them to Championship football. The week after, we steamroller Crystal Palace, and finally, Manchester City falter. They draw against Liverpool, and that gives us what we wanted, a situation where a win on the last day of the season will win us the Premier League title. The 2 giants of Manchester are standing toe-to-toe with just 1 game to go. It's Blues versus Reds. It's more than just a game. For this entire city, this is life. The director's box is packed with family members, celebrities, and basically anyone who can afford to buy a ticket. We've already decided that second place isn't the end of the world, but we haven't told Amorim that. We want him to have the pressure, because pressure makes diamonds after all. Our rebuilt side walks out, Captain Kane given the armband, and who knows, maybe in 90 minutes, he'll be lifting his first major trophy and Manchester United's 14th Premier League trophy. So, with the director's box so full, we watched this game from home just like millions of people in Manchester did. It looked like United had made a pretty good start. There was chances flying in from both of the wingers that we've given to Ruben, but when our signing Aït-Nouri gave it to Harry Kane, what followed was beyond what we'd ever expected. We're fully taking the credit for that goal. It could be as big as the Aguero moment 13 years ago. What a hit! It's an iconic goal, and it's Kane's 30th goal of the season. Our team that was built around the idea of being relentless, never stopping the press, and always being available for the pass was paying off big time. Of course, City had some chances, but again, we're going to be taking the credit for the performances of Murillo and Ederson. In fact, going into half-time, we were ecstatic with how things were going. We even sent Jim Ratcliffe a message to let him know that it was our idea to grab Harry Kane. After scoffing down some prawn sandwiches, the game resumed at Old Trafford. More of the same please, Ruben. Oh god. Please can that not be? It's a red card. Jesus Christ. As we were trying to figure out how to unsend a text, Harry Kane saw the red card, and all of a sudden, things shifted at Old Trafford. We were so anxious on our sofa, so God knows what Ruben was feeling down on the touchline. But still, United were on top. There was a big gap up front where Harry Kane should have been, but the rest of the team was still structured and disciplined. Even though Man City had Van Dijk and Ruben Diaz at the back, we were still a threat on the counter. But then things shifted again, even further in City's favour. One-touch football isn't a part of our game, but of course it's a big part of theirs. Foden to Haaland, and it's 1-1. Damn. We checked the table on our phone and saw that a draw wasn't good enough. We have to win this game. City were full of confidence, and 15 minutes later, things got even worse for us. 2-1 down, and our rivals were going to lift the trophy at our stadium. We actually sent a text to the security team advising them to not let the trophy lift happen, and he agreed that it was a massive safety concern. In the last 10 minutes of this disaster, City would make it 3, and the Yorkshire-born striker had broken millions of Lancastrian hearts. It was a hat-trick. Erling Haaland of all people, and even after £450 million investment, we couldn't beat our noisy neighbours. The referee called mercy on our suffering, a 3-1 loss, and how much of that is Harry Kane's fault? It was his only red card in 550 games, so I don't know why he did it, but it echoed similarities with Gerrard's against Man United in 2015. City would go home to lift the trophy an hour later in front of a packed Etihad Stadium, while we had to think about what was next. Was Ruben going to be sacked? I'll tell you what, if this video is the 6,000 likes, I'll make a second episode telling you about the next 2 seasons of our career. But until then, thank you so much for watching, even if we didn't manage to win anything. Hopefully you've enjoyed this story, and I'll see you soon. Cheers and goodbye.